Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Overdress Hexaorb Sanctuary deck profile for Post, A Brush with the Legends. With the latest Cardfight Vanguard booster set, we were given a good amount of support to fully utilize the Hexaorb Sorceress deck, which I would say is definitely the next format take on the Oracle Think Tank Magus deck, with the similarity in how the cards look and just the actual playstyle of the deck, focusing on the use of knowing the top cards of your deck and getting the additional drive checks thanks to Hexaorb Sorceress for all of those different plays. I've always been a fan of Oracle Think Tank, so this deck for Keter Sanctuary definitely gives me those same vibes when using these cards. And you can use a good amount of the new support in just a better way, and I can't wait, with set 3 to see if we'll get some even more additional support for this deck altogether. But let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the ride deck, the ride decks pretty much remain the same since the last update, with our starter being Tri-Connect Sorceress. When rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 target being Tier Square Sorceress. When this unit is rode upon by Pentagleam Sorceress, you counterblast 1 and draw a card. So that just adds to our draw power in the deck, getting hand consistency, just like the old Oracle Think Tank decks used to do. And also for that option, on the rear guard, when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards and put it on the bottom of their deck. The main setup is for our grade 2 Pentagleam Sorceress. When this unit is rode upon by Hexaorb Sorceress, look at the 3 cards on the top of your deck and put them on the top of your deck in any order. So knowing where your triggers fall, or even your next grade 3s for the potential Persona ride, is what's great about this card for that option. With the last of the ride deck being Hexaorb Sorceress, our main go-to card for the entire deck, and our main go-to boss monster altogether. That's why in the actual main deck, we're running 3 additional copies of this card. When your drive check reveals a trigger unit, choose one of your rear guards and it gets plus 10,000 power until end of turn. So, and on Vanguard, once per turn, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, reveal up to 1 critical trigger or front trigger from your hand, put it on the top of your deck, and then this unit gets drive +1 until end of turn. So it's not really a plus, but it gives you that additional card to make up for, giving you back the card you placed on top of the deck, but also being able to set up either a critical or front trigger that much easily against your opponent, and also potentially knowing what the top cards of your deck will be gives you more for the trigger line option also, depending on the other cards you use in the deck. So you want to Persona Ride as much as you can, so searching out this card is pretty important, but also giving you the option to draw into it to have multiple copies is an added plus there. For our next grade 3s, which is kind of following in similarity to the good majority of Keter Sanctuary decks, we're running a pretty high grade 3 count, with our next grade 3 being Octa Devotee Sorcerer, or Octa Devote Sorcerer. On rear guard, when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress, you can retire this unit to countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. So you do counterblast and soul blast a lot in this deck. So this is a great resource to have to rely on, even if it's in the back row rear guard and it doesn't provide a boost. You can get the additional plus with some of your other cards, but just being able to then retire this unit will clear up the back row next turn for a boost without having to get rid of a unit, but also being able to provide you with counterblast to use, and also for soul to use for plenty of your other skills, including the fact that that's pretty much the whole cost for Hexaorb's Persona Ride skill right then and there. For the next grade 3, I'm also running 3 Heavenly Staff of Kind Intention, Kolthes. When this unit is revealed for a drive check, you may call this card to an open rear. If you do, this unit gets boosts until end of turn. So a big play with this card is if you reveal a trigger unit first, you can retire Octa Devotee Sorceress from the back row. And then if you reveal this card next, it all depends on the order of cards on the top of your deck. You can call this card to that open rear, and then it'll gain boost for your additional card you had on that field setup, providing the boost for the open rear guard that you just called this to for that open rear guard. So being able to clear the rear guard with Octa Devotee Sorcerer is an added plus there, for the fact that then you can just call out the card you reveal with the drive check to provide the boost for that front row rear guard to begin with. Another rear guard grade 3 that I run 3 Darkstrain Dragon. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, Soul Blast 2 and all of your grade 3s get boost until end of turn. So just another way if you want to make use of your Octa Devotee Sorceress as a way to provide boost before retiring this card, you can use Darkstrain Dragon. It's an added option. You could try the newest card that came out in set 2 as an added boost when you Persona Ride, but if you're looking for just one of the earlier options, if you have it, Darkstrain Dragon can be the next best thing, but it's all down to player preference also for what cards you have. I would say the Octavoti and the Kolthes playstyle is definitely your main go-to 3 setup, but the Darkstrain Dragon and also our additional grade 3 lineup card, which is Knight of War Damage Fossato. Provide more and more setup for your field. With Fossato, every time it hits, you get to countercharge 1 and soul charge 1, and this unit can't be chosen by your opponent's card effect, so it can't be retired by cards in Dragon Empire, it can't be put into the prison by Bruntgate, you name it, just a good grade 3 to keep on the front row, meaning that your opponent will at least have to attack into it to get rid of this card. And that is it for the grade 3s. Like I said, we run a pretty good number of grade 3s, but that seems to be the trend when using Keter Sanctuary. For our grade 2s, we're actually only running one grade 2 in this deck, and that is Exquisite Knight Olwen. When this unit is placed on rear, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress, Soul Blast 1, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, put the top of your deck in any order, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So not only can this set up the play combo that I mentioned before quite easily if you reveal these cards, it just gives you the option to put other unnecessary cards on the bottom of the deck for you to make way for triggers also for those cards. And when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, you can counterblast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 until end of turn. Along with the Persona Ride in this card, you can hit for 30,000 alone. So even if one of your other grade 3s doesn't provide the boost for the card, it can still hit for a pretty big number against your opponent, and that's not even counting a trigger. This is just counting off of this card's own skill and the Persona Ride. For our grade 1s, I'm running 4 of the new Diaglass Sorceress. When this unit is placed on rear from hand, if your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress or Pentagleam Sorceress, counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 2 cards, units from among them, call them to rear, and put the rest on the top of your deck in any order. So with it, you have more setup for the field, but also the top of the deck. Just like your Exquisite Knight Olwen, this card provides immense support for the actual playstyle of the deck, and that is knowing what the top of your deck will use and what those cards will provide for you for your upcoming play. And the other grade 1 that I run is just our go-to Sentinel, being Aegis Mare Dragon, having the option, once again, as always, when you have the 2 in hand, to guard with the 1, and if it's the only other card in your hand, not having to discard for the cost. So if your opponent is attacking with their Vanguard and hitting for you and they get an overtrigger, more likely they'll give it to one of their rear guards, depending on the type of overtrigger, and you'll have that final Sentinel in hand to block that attack against them also. And for the normal orders that we run in the deck, I run 2 Form Up, O Chosen Knights. You play this card with a Counterblast 1 and a Soul Blast 1. Perform all the effects below according to the number of grade 3 units. If it's 2 or more, choose one of your units. It gets plus 5 until end of turn. 3 or more, draw a card. And if it's 4 or more, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets drive plus 1 until end of turn. Now, this card can give your Hexaorb Sorceress quadruple drive. So 4 checks in total with its own skill. So very, very strong. I even thought of increasing the number of this card. If you were to do so, you can try reducing the number of your grade 3 count. You have the boost option with Kolthess, so if you wanted to drop the number of Darkstrain Dragon down, or even your Octadevote Sorceress, you can always drop those numbers down and increase your number of this normal order. It just provides more and more pressure for your deck, and also giving you a draw card as long as you have those grade 3s set up on the field. For our trigger lineup, I'm going with the most pressure that you can make use of, and the fact that you need front triggers and critical triggers means I'm not running any draws in the deck. So 7 critical total with 4 White Fang Witch Disma and 3 Gargant, just because we have the over trigger spot to fill also. With our front trigger being used is the newest one, Bard of Heavenly Song Alpac. It has the additional plus 5 shield skill, so just an easy guard against your opponent, being able to block attacks all the way up to 33,000 if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3. So even if you're on grade 2 and they're at grade 3, it makes for a great early game guard against your opponent, giving you that plus 5 to block other attacks against your opponent. If you're at a 10k Vanguard, being the 30k needed to block 28k attacks. With our last triggers being the 4 heal trigger, the Circling Sorceress, just as the, I would say, more fitting trigger for the Oracle Think Tank-like Magus deck. And lastly, our over trigger being the Light Dragon Deity of Honor's Arma Tanoa, being the drive check option for all your rear guards. Once again, immense pressure when you reveal this, because not only will they perform drive checks for the battle that your rear guard attacks, you can just get more and more cards into your hand and more setup with all your different drive checks that you can get benefits for depending on the units you have on the field. As for the go-to plays, once again, just with the drive check reveals for Hexaorb Sorceress, not only will you be able to reveal a trigger guaranteed when you Persona Ride with this card, but then your go-to setup will be having the Octa Devotee on the back rear guard and then another unit in the front row. So you'll attack with your Hexaorb Sorceress, you'll reveal the trigger, which when you reveal the trigger, you'll get the option to retire this card and then soul charge the next card. And then by chance, if you reveal the Kolthess, which a lot of times sometimes it shouldn't even be chance. You should have the deck organized to know what the cards will be. Then you can reveal this card for the next play, calling it to the rear guard, giving your next attack after your drive checks are finished, an added boost along with the power that you would have given to all your units thanks to the Hexaorb Sorceress on the field. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I've ended up liking this deck a lot more with the release of all the new cards in set 2. It felt like we were missing something with just set 1, having used a lot more of the Bastion related cards. But like I said, as we get more and more cards that actually work with Hexaorb, we can actually see this deck be able to fully identify as its own Keter Sanctuary deck. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.